Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. I wanted to create a video which sort of paid tribute to one of the world's most incredible visionaries and artists whom we lost yesterday, and that was Issey Miyake. The news came as quite a shock to the world and indeed to myself. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I used to work for Parfum's BPI, and they were the main distributors of Issey Miyake perfumes here in Australia. And it was whilst working for them that I really had an appreciation and developed an understanding and admiration for the universe that Issey Miyake had created. He was an incredible visionary. He was born in the 1930s in Hiroshima in Japan. He survived the dreadful bombings in World War II. He went on to study fashion and work for some of the big French houses such as Guy Laroche and Givenchy, before opening his own atelier in 1970. And it's from that atelier that he's been producing incredible innovations in fashion, beauty, and design for the last 50 odd years. It is a great loss. Issey Miyake in the 90s sort of rose to fame. I think that's really when the spotlight trained on him, and he produced a lot of fabulous fragrances, the most notable of which was probably L'Eau d'Issey, Issey's water. Masculine and feminine. They revolutionized the perfume industry, and they really played into that 1990s idea of minimalism. And it's also a very Japanese idea too. So we'd stepped out of the decade of excess in the 80s, and we saw like a global consciousness become pared back. We were looking towards the new millennium at the time, thinking of the space age again, and everything became a lot sleeker. We saw it in fashions where silhouettes were very simple. We saw it in fragrance when perfumes such as CK1 or CKB entered the world stage and were quite androgynous or unisex. It's a theme that Issey Miyake revisited in the late 90s, and that was with his perfume Le Feu d'Issey, the Fire of Issey. Now, as far as the public response to this perfume when it was launched, it was a commercial flop. And that's really sad. For me, it remains one of the most incredible, artistic, beautiful perfumes and kind of ideas in the late 20th century. Le Feu d'Issey was created by Jacques Cavalier, and Issey Miyake teamed up with a French designer, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, Guaiac Nicolas. And he's also based in Japan, so they teamed up to create this phenomenal flacon, which is created with a plastic sort of resin called water clear, which was meant to emulate glass. And you really do get a sense of that kind of glassy exterior when you look at this. It was a new inroad in design too, which was phenomenal. It's to their credit that they did this sort of thing. The perfume itself though, commercial flop. It was one of the very first that I've ever heard of to use milk as a starring accord. There was anise, rosewood, there's rose, caramel, and vanilla. So quite an unusual blend. Also some pepper in there too, to give it a little bit of fire. An unusual blend, and one that I personally have always likened to the smell of soluble vitamin B tablets like Berocca. I don't know if you have Berocca where you live, but for us here in Australia, it's a brand of soluble vitamin B tablets that you often take after a big night out. It's an unusual fragrance, but one that a lot of people, I remember turning their nose up at when sprayed on the shop floor and people handing out cards. They'd be like, oh, it smells like vitamin B. And, people really didn't understand it. And it's very interesting. Today in 2022, as we put 20 years between us and its release, people are becoming, to understand it a lot better. And isn't that true of a lot of art? Sometimes you've got to put a bit of distance between yourself and the work so that it comes into sharper clarity. And that's really what's happened here. It's evidenced in, the prices that you can find it online for now. You can probably expect to pay for a 75ml bottle anywhere between $400 and $700 these days. But it's also evidenced in the online forums and things like that, where people are, rhapsodizing over this artistic rendering, this real abstract expression of fire that Issey Miyake managed to create. For me, it will always remain one of the most wonderful avant-garde perfumes, not only for its beautiful minimalistic bottle that really captured a snapshot of its time, but for just the artistry and the approach that Issey Miyake took when he was creating this. It's a sad day. I hope all of you who have an Issey Miyake fragrance in your collection reach for it today, spray some on, and remember an incredible man who really revolutionized the world. If you have got a favorite, chuck it in the comments below. I'd love to read your comments about any of your favorite Issey Miyake fragrances, whether or not you've smelled Le Feu d'Essai, what your opinion is. It can be quite polarizing and divisive. Hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you here very soon again. Thanks a lot.